I kind of went down the road of thinking like what I found interesting about each of these is that they took something that's very typical part
Mhm.
of Christmas lore and then turned it into something horrific, which
Yeah.
which is cool. Like, because that's really what a lot of this like horror films come from. You're taking something mythical or something, whatever, something people know about, and uncovering the filthy, filthy truth about it. So the first one that
Yeah.
I picked is I've seen it 100 times, and
Hmm.
I just decided to do it is Elves on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's Danish. It's a Danish project. It's like everything on Netflix. It's foreign. It's dubbed and
Hmm.
dubbed really well. So you can go watch it and not skip a beat
Yeah.
on what's going on with it. But I mean, it shows up because obviously I watch enough horror, so it's like, hey, here's another horror film. But I think it came out end of November or early December. It is Christmas related because first off, it's talking about elves. These are Christmas
Yeah.
elves, technically. Although I think part of the lore is that they're like they're kind of like garden gnomes. You know, they're supposed to have like beard things.
Right.
That's kind of
Hmm.
what they're supposed to be.
Hmm.
But it's a quick, easy. So takes place during Christmas, and this family is going up into the woods and you know, trying to, you know, get a little holiday cheer up in this cabin. But what happens is they it turns out this village where they're going, where I guess their grandmother lives,
Hmm.
they live in they have this agreement with these elves that they discover. And of course, it kind of had a Gremlins feel to it because, like, the sort of main character, little girl, she finds the baby elf, which is really
Hmm.
cute, and is like, "Oh, it's my buddy." And through the course of the film or series, that's her buddy. But we find out pretty quick that there's adult, that's a baby elf, and
Uh-huh.
there's grown up elves,
Yeah.
and they're monstrous, horrific creatures. And they're not really elfish either. They're pretty big. Like they're pretty big, and they got like furry cone heads, and they
Hmm.
lurk in the grass a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyhow, they got them in this big holding cell,
Yeah.
and then they break out and they start killing people.
Hmm.
And the grandmother's all pissed at them for doing it because it's all them. Realistically, this family had no clue what they're doing, but they just wreaked havoc on this small little Danish town that
Yeah.
was trying to live symbiotically with these monstrous elves. And it kind of ended, you know, yeah, this ended with these elves were like attacking the cars and
Hmm.
slaughtering the grandma and people and stuff like that. But it's interesting because I actually thought about it too. It's like elves, there are actually
Hmm.
a lot of elf projects out there,
Yeah, there are. Yeah. Yeah. We're talking
but
about before. There's a one with Dan Haggerty called Elves, aka Grizzly Adams.
uh,
There's one also that's called Elves with that's like a puppet horror. They did a sequel to that. But yeah, and then there's like the elf. Oh, the elf is one that I'm thinking about. It's like the puppet horror that they did the sequel to.
there
Yeah,
is
there's all
one the
kinds
elf.
that are similar to this. Yeah.
There are ones out there. So this one
Mhm.
has elves more as like
Mhm.
creatures as
Yeah.
opposed to like little leprechauns, right? So it has.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's
Mhm.
neat in that way that it was good. But I thought it was pretty good, like inventive for sure. Taking a little creature,
Yeah.
and they call them, what are they called? Nicer, whatever they are. Like
Mhm.
they're actually part of a Danish like mythical lore. Like they actually have a word as these sort of fairy Christmas elf type of things, and they literally in the real history of them is that they
Mhm.
look like garden gnomes. They look like
Yeah.
garden gnomes.
Well, yeah, along those lines, like I am part Norwegian, and so in Norway, they actually like a lot of people in Norway believe in trolls still. So that is
Yeah,
sort of like, and we like had. I remember like growing up, we had books about like little gnomes and stuff like that and everything. We had these big picture books of little gnomes and trolls, and it's pretty funny.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
much like how we know that like
Mhm.
Bigfoot's real,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
they know that elves
Mhm.
are real. Like, and they're a thing. And
Yeah.
this is probably the most realistic depiction of what elves are.
Yeah.
I would think monstrous creatures that kind of eat people.
Now, question about this: did they change? So did they do the Gremlins thing, where like if you feed them after midnight, they change into like Gizmo turns into Stripe, or is
no,
there
I
just
really didn't
different
have
versions of
that.
these elves?
No, she just befriended the little
Okay,
baby one,
okay.
and she thought these are cute, whatever. But
Hmm.
then as they said, "Oh, I'm gonna go explore where they come from," it like they're monstrous creatures, and they break out of this cage. So it had this kind of like, but she befriends the baby one,
Yeah,
much like Gizmo.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
as the monstrous ones start going around, she's still friends with that one. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So that's kind of where it had the Gremlins feel to me. Like it was like, oh, this is even at the end, she's trying to save the cute one that's hers.
Yeah.
Right. So that through line is there, that's the baby one is her buddy, but the monstrous ones that they grow up to be are not.
Yeah.
It's a good twist. It's a good twist on the elf thing. It's something new that I hadn't seen. I was pretty. It's quick too. Like it's 6 episodes, but I think each episode is like 20 to 25 minutes, so you can rip through this. And it's a good. I don't know if it's going to stick around as the Christmas series to watch, but it's worth checking out.
Yeah, well, you kind of sold me on that. I think I'm going to check that out. I'll at least check out the first couple. I mean, look, I'll check out anything with like creatures or puppets or stop motion or anything along those lines. I think this is CGI, but I did see the elves they look pretty. They look at evil versions of Groot.
The baby elf is CGI, but the big ones I think are the big ones are like people in elf costumes. Maybe a bit of CGI here and there, but generally speaking, no. They're like in an elf. Like I said, they're not elfish at all when it comes to size. They're fairly large creatures. That
just
lurk.
that little. Yeah.
There's some cool. There's actually some creepy stuff, which I thought was kind of. There's a couple of shots where she's looking at grassy fields, and you can just see their little cone heads behind the grass, because that's what elves do. They hide in the grass. They did this shot a lot where you quickly turn, you can't see anything, but they kind of hold on it, and you can see the little movement of the cone heads and the shit like that. And I thought it's kind of a creepy thing to know that something that you're looking at every day might have shit in front of you that you just can't see it. And it kind of had that little. I thought that was kind of cool. It was like if you just turn quickly and you're like, hey, shit, there's a field of nothing. But then all of a sudden, hey, look closely. This shit's moving in there. It's, like it makes me, that it's kind of eerie. Like if I went out to the woods for a walk, if I actually stopped and looked, shit is going to move, and they very well could be killer elves.